was a gray, quiet morning when my family and I left our home in black clothes. We were heading to my grandmother's house not for a visit, but for her funeral. She had passed away after a long illness. I loved her. Dearly she told stories, taught me to plant flowers, and said I had a kind heart and a soft voice like a songbird. At her house, filled with quiet sadness, I wandered into her room. On her soft bed, I noticed a small wooden box under it. Inside was a golden pen and a folded note in her handwriting. "This pen is magical," it read. "Whatever you write, with it comes true. But be careful. Don't harm or steal. Everything you write will return to you." I hesitated, but wrote a simple wish. A red rose. Moments later, a breeze passed. There it was. A real red rose. I was stunned. I knew I had found something powerful. I kept the pen a secret. At school, I wrote, "Let it rain chocolate." Soon, pieces of chocolate fell from the sky. Kids laughed and cheered. I smiled, but knew I had to be careful. Another day, I wrote, "Let my sister find her lost doll." An hour later, she ran to me, holding it. It had been gone for days. I felt like a hidden hero, helping others without them knowing. At night, I reread Grandma's note. "Use it wisely." I began to understand this wasn't just magic. It was a test of character. I made small, kind wishes. One day I wished my mom would help with homework, and she did. Another day, I wished for my friend Noor to smile, and she did too. But then, one rainy afternoon, I missed Grandma terribly. I picked up the pen, wondering if I could write. "Let Grandma come back." My hand trembled, but I remembered her words. "Don't go against the laws of life." I put the pen down. I cried, but I understood real love respects the limits of life. Then next day, something happened I hadn't wished for. My principal called me out of class to say I was chosen for a school story contest. My teacher believed in my imagination. It was the first time something beautiful happened without the pen, and it felt real. I decided to write about Grandma, the pen, and all I'd learned, but as if it were just a story. That night, I wrote one last magical wish. May my story help those who read it. On contest day, I wore a simple dress. My mom tied a violet ribbon in my hair. As I read my story aloud, I saw people listening, smiling, even tearing up. When I finished, there was silence and loud applause. I won first place. The judges said my story was different, honest, and full of meaning. They gave me a certificate, a book, and a big white rose. On my way home, I smiled and wrote in my notebook, "Let more children hear my story." Days later, my story appeared in the school magazine. A teacher invited me to tell it to younger kids. I watched their eyes light up, their faces change with every moment. One little girl said, "I love your grandma. I want to be like her. That's when I realized the real power wasn't in the pen, it was in the words, the love, the heart. One evening, I opened Grandma's old box again. Inside was a small notebook I'd never seen. In it, she had written, "The pen isn't a gift. It's a responsibility. If you've learned that love is stronger than power, you've used it well." I cried and smiled. From that day on, I stopped using the pen for wishes. I wrote stories, ideas, feelings, and shared them. Every time I did, I felt her beside me, smiling. No, I don't need a magic pen. I have something better. A heart that knows right from wrong. Eyes that find light in the dark. A voice that tells stories of hope. On the last page of my notebook, I wrote, "Wisdom isn't in having power.